Hello to all of you listening to us on the Wounded Heart channel. Today's story. I came home early and found the maid with her clothes disheveled coming out of my bedroom. My husband appeared next, panting, standing beside the bed with a broken leg. I bent down to inspect it and discovered a terrifying secret. There are days like this when simply opening a door changes the course of a woman's life forever. That afternoon, I left work early. As soon as I walked up to the second floor, I saw Lucy, our new maid, coming out of our bedroom. Her blouse was wrinkled, her hair was a mess, and her face was as pale as if all her blood had been drained. And my husband Tyler was sitting on the floor, breathing heavily next to the bed, which had a broken leg. The sheets were rumpled, the nightstand was out of place, and the air in the room was so thick it felt like someone had dumped a bucket of ice water over my dignity. At that moment, if I had screamed, no one would have criticized me. If I had slapped the maid, people would have understood. If I had turned to my husband crying and asking how he could do this to me, maybe it would have been a justified reaction. But strangely, I didn't cry. I stood paralyzed, listening to my heart beat each thump as heavy as a hammer striking stone in the dead of night. Because with the intuition of a woman who had lived 13 years in her husband's family home, I knew the scene in front of me wasn't a simple affair. It looked like a trap. And this trap hadn't been set just to ruin my husband, but to kick me out of that house with the ultimate humiliation. My name is Sarah, and at the time I was 39 years old. Anyone looking from the outside would say I was a lucky woman. I had a husband who was an operations manager at a dental equipment company, a well-behaved 2-year-old son named Noah, a beautiful 3-story colonial house in Oak Park, a suburb of Chicago. And on top of that, I had built 4 successful wellness and beauty spas from scratch across the city. It might sound glamorous, but to get to where I am, I started in a tiny rented room where I could barely fit 2 massage tables. Back then, clients had to ask to park in the driveway next door. On rainy days, water leaked through the doorframe and I'd wipe the floor while smiling at my clients. Bear with me, ma'am. Today we have a free premium service, the soothing sound of rainfall, I'd say jokingly, but inside many nights I wanted to cry. I worked from dawn to dusk. My hands would get raw from constantly dealing with products, and my back ached from bending over to give massages. There were days when my lunch was a sandwich eaten in a rush behind the reception desk. But I pushed through because I believe that a woman with a profession in her hands, even if life pushes her down, doesn't fall easily. My husband Tyler is 4 years older than me. In public, he is eloquent, confident at work, respected by his subordinates, and trusted by his bosses. Everyone who knew him praised my luck for marrying a good man, with no vices for alcohol, gambling, or other women. But Tyler's kindness was sometimes a kindness that hurt those closest to him. If he was decisive at the company at home in front of his mother Evelyn, he turned as soft as bread, soaked in milk. Whatever his mother said, he feared upsetting her. If she got angry, he stayed quiet. If she criticized me, he lowered his head. If she crossed a line, he would just pull me into the bedroom and whisper, "Just have a little patience with my mom. She's getting older, she has her ways, but she's not a bad person." I heard that phrase so many times, I knew it by heart. Sometimes I even joked bitterly to myself, thinking that if my life were a book, the title would have to be "Just Have a Little Patience with My Mom." Over time, that phrase became the soundtrack of my marriage. My mother-in-law, Evelyn, was 68 at the time. A widow for many years, Tyler was her only child. For her, Tyler wasn't just a son. He was the pillar of the house, her pride and joy, the one who would carry on the family name. As for me, despite being her daughter-in-law for 13 years, giving her a grandson, taking care of the meals, birthdays, medications, and illnesses in her eyes, I was still just the girl from another family. She didn't insult me with harsh words. She was more subtle. She hurt me with light but painful remarks. In front of relatives, she would give a half smile and say Sarah is very good at making money, so sometimes she thinks she runs the house too. She has her own ideas. With just that sentence, anyone could tell she viewed me as the daughter-in-law who, because of her income, thought she was above her husband's family. One time during dinner, I had just put a hearty vegetable stew, a pot roast, and a garden salad, her favorite, on the table. She looked at me and said, "A woman who spends all day out in the street among creams and scented oils with money coming in and out. Who knows if it's clean or dirty money? Thankfully, this house has an older woman to look after it, otherwise it would feel like a cheap motel, always cold." I was holding my silverware and hearing that I could only put it down. Noah, sitting next to me, looked at me with his big round eyes and then at his grandmother. I was afraid he'd get upset, so I forced a smile. "Eat the pot roast, Evelyn. I made it with less sodium today, so it won't spike your blood pressure." Evelyn didn't reply. She took a piece of meat, put it on Tyler's plate, and said indifferently, "Eat, son. You work all day, poor thing. The men of the house carry the heaviest burden. I don't dispute that men work hard. I'm just sad that the little things I do every day are never considered work by anyone. Paying the utility bills, picking up her prescriptions, helping my son with homework, fixing the AC, lighting a candle on the anniversary of my father-in-law's passing, buying the flowers I place next to his picture. Most of it came out of my pocket, but whenever the house was mentioned, Evelyn would say, "This house belongs to our family. The daughter-in-law who lives here should know her place." That three-story colonial had once been my greatest pride. The ground floor had a spacious living room with a set of oak furniture my late father-in-law loved. The second floor had our bedroom and Noah's. The top floor had a small home office we used for storage and a sunny deck where Evelyn kept her potted hydrangeas. From the outside, the house was stately and pristine. Passers-by always complimented it. But for me, that house often felt like a beautiful dress worn over a body covered in tiny thorns. It didn't make you bleed, but every movement hurt. I used to think it was best to yield to keep the peace. If my mother-in-law was difficult, I would be softer. If my husband was in a delicate position, I would be more understanding. My son was still little and needed a home with grandparents and parents. So it wasn't worth creating conflict. But in life, yielding the right way brings peace to a home. Yielding the wrong way just makes others think you have no backbone. The more successful I became in business, the more irritated Evelyn got. Ever since I opened my 4th spa in River North, she started insinuating that I was walking around with my nose in the air with clients coming and going and staff who respected me. At home, she watched me closer than ever. If I arrived late, she said, I was neglecting the family. If I arrived early, she hinted the business must be failing. If I bought high-quality groceries, she said I was showing off. If I didn't, she accused me of being stingy. I often asked myself, do people dislike me because I'm wrong or because simply nothing I do pleases them? Tyler knew everything. He wasn't blind, but he always chose to stay in the middle. And his middle was strange. He always leaned toward his mother. He said he loved me, but whenever I needed him to say a fair word, he stayed silent. He said family was important, but family in his mouth often just meant his mom. Me and our son seemed like an add-on. I lived like this for 13 years. I made sure the house was always lit, that the table always had a hot meal, that on the anniversary of my father-in-law's death, there was never a shortage of candles, flowers, and his favorite foods. I sent money to help my own parents, but I never forgot to buy Evelyn supplements. I taught my son to respect his elders even when I myself felt disrespected by them. I thought if I lived righteously one day, Evelyn would understand. But maybe I was naive, because in that house, even before Lucy arrived, there was already a crack. A crack in my mother-in-law's heart, in my husband's silence, and in my own excessive patience. They say a tree wants peace, but the wind never stops blowing. At the time, I just wanted to be a quiet tree in the yard, giving shade to my husband and son, but I didn't know a toxic wind had already started blowing long before I noticed. And when I finally realized it, the bed in our room already had a broken leg, and my trust snapped with a soft crack that ached straight to the bone. The house where I live with my husband's family wasn't always as imposing as it is now. When I got married and moved in, it was just an old, run-down single-story house on a wide street in Oak Park. The area was bustling, but the house itself had yellowing walls and a sagging roof. In the summer, it was an oven. In the winter, water dripped right over the dining table. I remember perfectly that in my first year of marriage, whenever it rained hard, I had to put a plastic bucket in the middle of the living room to catch the water. My father-in-law, Mr. Richard, who was still alive then, would watch me mop the floor and sigh. "Sarah, I need to get this house fixed. Letting you two live like this with a grandson on the way. It weighs heavily on my conscience." Mr. Richard was a man of few words but very decent. He never treated me like an outsider. Every morning he'd brew a strong pot of black coffee and sit on the porch reading the paper. When I walked by to go to work, he'd always call out, "Have you eaten anything, sweetie? Your mother-in-law bought fresh bagels. They're in the kitchen." Just a simple phrase, but for a daughter-in-law living far from her own family, it warmed my heart. When I was 4 months pregnant with Noah, the issue of remodeling the house was discussed seriously. Tyler had just been promoted to assistant manager. His salary wasn't high yet. I had just opened my first spa, and every dollar I made was reinvested into rent equipment and payroll. My in-laws owned the house and the lot, but didn't have much cash on hand. Evelyn initially insisted on just doing superficial repairs, patch the roof to stop the leaks, and be done with it. "Make do with what we have without going into debt," she said. It sounded reasonable, but the truth was the house was crumbling. The wiring was old and faulty. The bathroom was moldy. The back wall had a long crack and the foundation was sinking. A patch job would only last a few years. To live there long term, a real renovation was needed. My parents, who live in rural Indiana, heard about the situation. My dad, Arthur, spent his whole life farming. My mom, Martha, ran a local produce stand. They weren't rich, but the love they had for their daughter was immense. One Sunday afternoon, my parents drove up to Chicago and brought a fresh country chicken vegetables from the garden and a basket of apples. After lunch, my dad placed a stack of bank documents on the table and said to my father-in-law, "Richard, our kids live with you. And this house is where my daughter and my grandson will live for a long time. We have some savings and we'd like to chip in so the renovation can be done right. It's not a gift for anyone in particular. It's to help the young folks build their home." Hearing that, I got a lump in my throat. I knew that money was my parents' sweat and blood. The hot summers my dad woke up at dawn to work the fields, the freezing mornings my mom sat at the market selling every pound of produce. That money hadn't fallen from the sky. After several talks, my parents transferred a total of $50, 0 inches, 4 installments. The first to tear down the old roof and reinforce the foundation, the second to build the frame for a new second floor, the third for plumbing, electricity, tiles, and stairs, and the last to finish the office, the deck, doors, windows, and paint. I still keep all the bank statements. The senders are Arthur and Martha. The recipient was sometimes Tyler, other times the joint account we had to pay the contractors. The receipts for cement, steel wiring, bathroom fixtures, and hardwood floors, I kept them all in a blue binder. I was careful back then, not because I distrusted anyone, but because I was used to handling business. Money that comes in and out needs to be tracked. When it comes to money, words blow away in the wind and resentments grow. My father-in-law was even more meticulous. He handwrote a declaration confirming that Tyler's wife's parents contributed $50,000 for the remodeling and expansion of the house. That document was signed by him, Tyler, me, my parents, and Tyler's uncle, Uncle Jack, who served as a witness. After signing, Mr. Richard put the pen down, looked at Evelyn, and said, "Accounts must be clear. If our in-laws treat us with such generosity, we must be even more righteous. I don't want Sarah feeling diminished in the future." Evelyn didn't object at the time. She just sat nearby, flipping through a magazine with an expression that was neither happy nor sad. I thought her silence meant consent. Only later did I realize that some silences aren't acceptance, but someone biting their tongue for later. The house renovation took almost 8 months. On the day the framing was finished, the family threw a celebratory lunch. My mom came from Indiana and brought a huge tray of barbecue ribs, baked mac and cheese, and a garden salad. Evelyn made clam chowder, saying it was tradition. My father-in-law smiled warmly. "New house, the bad luck has to know it's time to leave." I never forgot that phrase. When the house was finished, it was a joy for everyone. The ground floor had gleaming hardwood and the living room was huge. The second floor had a separate bedroom for us and a nursery for Noah. The third floor had an office and a sunny back deck. The first time I walked into our new bedroom, painted a soft cream, I put my hand on my pregnant belly and felt deeply moved. I thought I finally had a real home. But life has a sense of irony. What I considered a home, others saw only as a material asset. After my father-in-law passed away from a stroke, the tone around the house started to change in Evelyn's words. At first, it was just offhand remarks. This house was left by Tyler's dad. It must be preserved for my grandson. I listened, but didn't care. It was true. It was my in-laws' house. I never denied that. But gradually her remarks became more frequent and heavier. Once during a memorial lunch for Mr. Richard with Tyler's side of the family present, I rushed in from one of the spas, quickly changed clothes, and went straight to the kitchen to fry chicken, prep the sides, and set the table. While everyone was drinking coffee after the meal, a cousin praised the house, saying it was beautiful and spacious. Evelyn gave me a side eye and smirked. "It's our family's home. The descendants of our bloodline have to live with dignity." Of course. I was carrying a fruit platter and hearing that I paused. She didn't mention my parents once. She didn't talk about the $50,000, nor did she remember the months I spent heavily pregnant picking out every tile, every banister model for the stairs. After that day, I spoke privately with Tyler. "Honey, I'm not claiming the house is mine, but your mom talking like that hurts me. The money my parents invested wasn't loose change." Tyler rubbed his forehead, looking exhausted. "Mom's getting old. It's just how she talks. Don't take it personally. You're just gonna stress yourself out." I smiled, but I felt cold inside. One person's habit can be another person's wound. I kept my father-in-law's declaration in an antique wooden box, along with the bank statements and receipts. I didn't take it out to argue. I didn't rub it in my mother-in-law's face to prove a point. I believed family relationships shouldn't be based on pieces of paper. It would be too bitter. And besides, I still trusted Tyler. I trusted my husband knew my efforts and my family's value, but that trust was what would eventually cause me the most pain. Evelyn treated the house increasingly as her private territory. Whenever I suggested fixing a broken faucet, changing the curtains, or buying a new bookshelf for Noah, she'd say, "To do anything you have to ask me. This house isn't a place where you just move things around." I yielded. I told myself older people are attached to their things, and being younger, I shouldn't cause friction. I kept paying the utility bills, handling the holidays, buying her meds. On every anniversary of my father-in-law's death, I was the one who bought flowers and lit a candle by his picture. I still called Mr. Richard Dad in my head and asked him in my thoughts to help keep the peace in the family. But the more I yielded, the more I felt like a ghost in that house. They needed me when it was time for money, chores, or someone to cook for a family gathering. But when it came to my right to be respected, I instantly became an outsider. The old saying goes, "He who eats the fruit should remember who planted the tree." In my mother-in-law's house, everyone ate the fruit, but they pretended the tree planted by my family didn't exist. I didn't know at the time that this 3-story colonial would become the bait that would bring pure greed to the surface, and that the piece of paper my father-in-law left behind, which I thought was just a memory of a good man, would later become the evidence that saved my honor and my son's. Lucy entered our lives on an early July afternoon, right after a heavy summer storm. The front yard still had puddles, and leaves had blown onto the porch steps. I remember it well because that day I had just come from my River North location. I still smelled of lemongrass essential oil and was carrying a bag with Evelyn's blood pressure medication. As soon as I opened the door, I saw Evelyn sitting in the living room, and next to her, a strange woman. She looked to be in her early 30s, petite with a tanned complexion, her hair pulled back into a low ponytail, wearing a faded but clean floral shirt. She held a worn canvas bag in her hands, the kind people use when traveling by bus for work. It probably just held a few changes of clothes. Evelyn, seeing me, immediately said in a tone that showed she'd already decided everything without consulting me, "Sarah, this is Lucy. From today on, she's staying here to help with the chores and take care of me. I'm getting old. You're gone all day. The house needs someone to lend a hand." I was a bit surprised. Not because I minded paying for a maid. In fact, for years I had suggested hiring someone part-time. But Evelyn always refused, saying she didn't like strangers coming in and out of the house. And now, suddenly, she brings someone to live with us, without even calling me or Tyler to give us a heads up. I looked at the woman, and she immediately stood up, bowing her head quickly. "Good afternoon, Miss Sarah. I'm Lucy." Miss Evelyn took pity on my situation, and let me come help. "I don't demand anything, ma'am. As long as I have a place to eat and sleep, I'll be deeply grateful." The words Miss Evelyn came out of her mouth with a sweetness that made me look twice. They barely knew each other, and she was already speaking to my mother-in-law more intimately than I ever had in 13 years. I felt a slight unease, but kept my courtesy. "Well, if my mother-in-law agreed, you can stay a few days to try out the work. It's not heavy, but our bedroom and our personal documents are places you shouldn't touch without permission. If you need anything, ask me or my mother-in-law." Lucy nodded repeatedly. "Yes, ma'am. I know my place. I've been doing this for years, and I know bosses have rules. You can rest easy. I'm poor, but I'm not careless." Evelyn immediately chimed in. "This girl speaks well. Since she's had a hard life, she knows how to behave. Nowadays, it's not easy to find an honest maid." The phrase sounded like a compliment to Lucy, but the needle was poking me. I noticed, but I didn't reply. Later, I found out Evelyn met Lucy at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. That day, she had gone to visit a friend who was admitted to the internal medicine ward. Lucy was a hired caregiver for the patient in the next bed. She knew how to help the elderly sit up, how to prep tea at the right temperature, how to massage shoulders, comb hair, and ask in a soft voice how they were feeling. A person in the hospital in pain and lonely, finding someone so sweet, is easily moved. Lucy also told her that her life was very hard, that she was from a poor town in Appalachia. She married young, her husband died in an accident, leaving her with a young son who lived with his grandparents. She came to Chicago and did all kinds of work, from washing dishes in diners to caring for the sick. Her story was sad enough to awaken compassion and miserable enough so no one would be suspicious. Evelyn, who always had more compassion for outsiders than for her own family, listened to her while analyzing every word. With a stranger who knew how to lower her head, her heart opened unexpectedly. After just a few conversations at the hospital, she already believed Lucy was a destitute but virtuous person. On the first night, Lucy stayed Evelyn, had her arrange her things in the small room next to the kitchen, which used to be a pantry. I gave her a set of clean sheets and a new pillow. She took them with both hands, her eyes shining with tears. Thank you, Miss Sarah. It's been a long time since I slept in a decent bed in a house as nice as this. Hearing that, I admit I was moved too. I also came from the bottom and know what it's like to need a safe harbor. I even asked Sophie at my spa to directly transfer the maid's salary to Lucy on time every month so she wouldn't have to ask for it. In the first few days, Lucy was incredibly hardworking. By 5:30 a.m., she was already up sweeping the porch and dusting the living room. As soon as Evelyn opened her bedroom door, she had a warm glass of lemon water waiting. The blood pressure meds were divided into a little pill box labeled morning, afternoon, and night. For lunch, she cooked butternut squash soup and baked tilapia dishes Evelyn loved. In the afternoon, she massaged her shoulders and prepared a ginger foot soak. Evelyn was radiant. Wherever she went, she praised Lucy. Who would have thought? She's so attentive. She's not family, but she takes better care of me than a lot of people in this house. I heard it and knew the dig was aimed at me, but I stayed quiet. I was genuinely busy. My day started by taking Noah to school. Then I visited the spas to check the books, handle client complaints, hold staff meetings, and in the evening I came back to deal with dinner. I couldn't sit around giving my mother-in-law massages every night like Lucy, but not being able to do something doesn't mean I lacked goodwill. Lucy was very cunning. In front of me, she was always respectful. If she saw me with heavy bags, she rushed to help. If she saw me washing dishes, she insisted on doing it herself. Her mouth was always saying, "Miss Sarah works so hard. Miss Sarah is so successful." If I were like you, I'd die of happiness. But behind my back, when it was just her and Evelyn, she knew how to spin a conversation. Once I walked past the kitchen and heard Lucy whispering, "Miss Evelyn, don't be sad." Nowadays, daughters-in-law who make their own money have a different mindset. They don't say it, but who knows if they still consider their husband's family their priority. Evelyn sighed. I'm just afraid that one day she'll completely control Tyler. If the house his grandparents left falls into her hands, what's left of our family name? Lucy lowered her voice as smooth as honey. Don't say that, Miss Evelyn. You still have your grandson. What belongs to this house must be kept for your blood. Outsiders, no matter how good they seem, are always outsiders. I was standing right outside the kitchen door, holding a bag of oranges I had just bought, feeling my throat tighten. I wanted to march in and ask directly, what about me? What have I been for these 13 years? But seeing Evelyn sitting there and Lucy massaging her shoulders, I swallowed hard. Because I knew if I spoke up, then Evelyn would tell me I was spying. Lucy would lower her head and cry. And Tyler would probably sigh and say I was being too sensitive since Lucy arrived. The routine of the house changed very quickly. She held the key to the pantry. She controlled Evelyn's medication schedule. She knew Evelyn's favorite meals, the people she disliked, what time Tyler left for work, what time I usually came home late. She knew everything. One day I came home and saw Lucy sitting with Evelyn looking through an old photo album. She pointed to a childhood picture of Tyler and smiled. Tyler was such a handsome little boy. Wasn't he, Miss Evelyn? You can tell he was destined to be someone important. Evelyn beamed with pride. He's my only child. My life is for him. Lucy glanced at me very quickly, then lowered her head again. That look was brief, but enough to give me chills. It didn't look like the gaze of a maid who knows her place. It looked like the gaze of someone who had already found her throne in that house. I started paying closer attention. Lucy never contradicted Evelyn. If Evelyn said today's daughters-in-law are hard to train, Lucy agreed. If she complained I was always working, Lucy sighed. If she mentioned our family's legacy, Lucy immediately backed her up. She didn't need to speak ill of me openly. Just adding one sentence a day, one sigh at every meal was enough. My mother-in-law's heart, which was already narrow toward me, became even smaller. They say water cuts through rock not because of its power but its persistence. Lucy was that water, no noise, no thunder, but she seeped into every crack of my home. At the time, I still didn't know what her ultimate goal was. I just felt a vague unease, like when you smell a slight hint of gas in the kitchen but you can't see the flame yet. And I was far from imagining that the woman who once thanked me with her head bowed for a clean pillow would later use my own bedroom to stage the most sordid play of my life. Since Lucy stayed, our house actually became much cleaner. The floors were always shining, the kitchen rarely had dirty dishes. The potted plants on the deck were watered regularly, and the laundry was hung perfectly straight. Because of this, Evelyn had even more reasons to praise her. Every morning when I went down to the kitchen, I'd hear her say, "Lucy is already up early cleaning. She's poor, but a hard worker." It's a joy to see. Another time, as I poured a glass of water, she continued, "Not like certain people who live here and don't even know where the broom is." I looked at the broom leaning behind the kitchen door and wanted to laugh. Not out of joy, but because life is truly strange. People forget so quickly the years you spent sweeping the house, cooking, washing dishes, and caring for them when they were sick. A new person just has to show up and everything you did is wiped away like dust off a table. I didn't argue. I kept going to work, taking care of Noah, and ordering breakfast for everyone when I was too busy to cook. I increasingly felt that Lucy was moving around the house with excessive familiarity. She knew which shelf Evelyn kept her chamomile tea on. She knew Tyler liked light blue dress shirts. She knew Noah hated chives, and she even knew where the keys to every room were hung. One Sunday at noon, I came home earlier than usual because a client canceled an appointment. As soon as I walked up to the second floor, I saw our bedroom door ajar, and from inside came a very low noise, like someone rummaging through things. I stopped and called out, "Who's in the bedroom?" Lucy walked out holding a laundry basket. Her face showed a brief startle, but she quickly lowered her head. "Oh, Miss Sarah. I came to get the laundry. Miss Evelyn said there were some of Mr. Tyler's shirts in your room that needed to air out so they wouldn't get musty." I looked at the key she had in her hand. It was the spare key to our bedroom. Normally, I kept it in a drawer in the living room console just in case. I had never given it to Lucy. I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "Who gave you the key?" Lucy answered in a low voice. Miss Evelyn did. She said, "We're all family here. If I'm helping with the chores, I need to know how to organize things." I walked into the bedroom. The bed was made, the closet closed, but the feeling that my privacy had been invaded made me very uncomfortable. A married couple's bedroom is where personal documents, intimate clothing, and private objects are kept. A maid, no matter how close, cannot come and go as she pleases. I turned to Lucy and said, "Next time you want to enter my bedroom, ask me first. Any laundry that needs washing, I'll leave in the hallway. A private bedroom is not a place anyone can enter whenever they want." Lucy lowered her head immediately, and her eyes turned red very fast. "I'm sorry, Miss Sarah. I didn't know you were so strict. I'm used to working like this. The boss's order and I do it. I don't have any bad intentions." Before I could reply, Evelyn came up the stairs. She must have heard the voices. Seeing Lucy with her head bowed, she frowned. "What's going on for you to have those faces?" Lucy rushed to say. "It's nothing, Miss Evelyn. It was just because I went in to get the laundry and Miss Sarah didn't like it. I already apologized." Evelyn turned to me, her voice instantly harsh. "It's just a bedroom, not a bank vault. The girl might be poor, but she's honest. Don't look at everyone with suspicion." I took a deep breath. "Evelyn, I'm not saying she stole anything. I'm just saying for a private bedroom, permission should be asked before entering. It's a matter of basic manners." She sneered. "Manners. This is a family home. You've been here as a daughter-in-law for over a decade and you still divide my room, your room, living like this. Who is going to tolerate you?" That remark made my face flush. But I didn't want to argue in front of Lucy. The old saying goes, "Don't wash your dirty linen in public." I didn't want a newcomer witnessing a fight between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. I just said I ask you, Evelyn, to return the spare key to my room. Whatever needs doing, I'll do it myself. Evelyn didn't give me the key. She pocketed it in her cardigan and said coldly, "The keys to my house I keep. You're gone all day. If there's no one to clean later, you'll complain it's a mess." Behind her, Lucy had eyes full of tears, but the corners of her mouth twitched slightly. It was such a subtle movement. If I hadn't been looking closely, I would have thought I imagined it. That night, dinner was chicken soup, roasted potatoes, and a salad. Standard fare, but the atmosphere was so heavy it felt like we had a boulder on our chests. Noah, sitting beside me, ate in silence. Tyler got home late from work, and as soon as he sat down, he realized something was off. Evelyn put a piece of chicken on his plate and said, "Eat, son. You work so hard you come home and still have to listen to arguments about private rooms and shared rooms. What a nuisance." Tyler looked at me. I put my fork down and said clearly, "Today I saw Lucy entering our room with the spare key. I merely said that next time she should ask for permission." Before Tyler could speak, Evelyn banged her silverware on the table. I told her to go in. "I still live in this house. Am I not allowed to have a key?" I replied. "You having a key is one thing. The maid having one is another." Lucy, who was near the kitchen, immediately approached. "Miss Sarah, please don't argue with your mother because of me. If you don't trust me, I can pack my bags tomorrow. I'm poor, it's true, but I also have my pride." The phrase sounded incredibly pitiful, but it was delivered with perfect timing, like the perfect cue, as if she was just waiting for me to take one more step so she could turn into the ultimate victim. Evelyn turned to comfort Lucy. "No one is sending you away. You stay here with me. I protect good people." Then she looked at me and said slowly, Women who make their own money get like this. They think their money is more important than family affection. But remember, a lot of money with a small heart only pushes people away. Hearing that, I felt my throat tighten. I wanted to ask her, so in these 13 years, who bought your medications? Who cooked for the holidays? Who paid to fix the roof? Who stayed up all night putting cold cloths on your forehead when you had a fever? But I looked at Noah, whose head was bowed over his plate, shoulders hunched, and I kept quiet. Tyler put some salad on my plate and whispered, "Come on, just eat. We'll talk later." I looked at the salad on my plate and had a sudden urge to laugh. He was always like this. When I needed a fair word, he gave me a scoop of salad. As if women, as long as you feed them, forget all humiliations. After dinner, I went up to the bedroom. Tyler followed me, closed the door, and sighed. "I know you're upset, but Mom is old and Lucy is just a maid. Don't take things so personally." I looked at him. "You don't see the problem. It's not about washing a shirt or cleaning the room. The problem is that our bedroom, our private space, has a key in the hands of someone else who comes and goes without asking. Today it's clothes, tomorrow it could be documents." He stayed quiet for a few seconds, then said, "We have nothing to hide to be afraid of." I laughed bitterly. "Not having anything to hide doesn't mean anyone has the right to rummage through our lives." He lowered his head, tired. "I just wish meals in this house could be peaceful." That sentence dropped softly, but it wounded me deeply, because I realized the peaceful meal he wanted was bought with my silence. If his mother crossed the line, I had to endure it. If the maid overstepped boundaries, I had to endure it. And if he stayed comfortably in the middle, I had to endure that too. But a house where only one person has to endure is not a place of peace. It's an injustice, covered with a white tablecloth to look like serenity. That night, I opened my drawer to check my personal documents. My passport, our marriage certificate, some old contracts, everything was there. But the feeling of insecurity couldn't be shoved back into the drawer. It was lodged in my chest, burning slowly like embers. I looked at the keychain hanging by the door and remembered the saying, "The tree wants peace, but the wind won't stop blowing." Except this time, I didn't feel the wind blowing outside. I felt the wind blowing directly into my bedroom. That Thursday afternoon, the Chicago sky had been overcast since noon. At my wellness center in Lincoln Park, we had just finished with 3 clients when it started smelling like something was burning in the back. A staff member warned me that the water heater had short-circuited. I immediately shut off the breaker, rescheduled the clients for the next day, and called a technician. I asked Sophie to call each client to apologize and offer them a complimentary foot treatment voucher. After handling the issue, I looked at my watch. It was past 4:00 p.m. Tyler had been coughing a lot that morning, looking pale. On the way home, I stopped at a deli I knew and bought some fresh chicken noodle soup and oranges. The love of a simple woman is like that. She sees her husband sick, she buys him hot soup. I arrived home around 4:40 p.m. The front door was unlocked, just pushed shut, not deadbolted like usual. Lucy's sneakers were crooked on the entrance mat. The living room was empty. On the coffee table was a half-finished cup of Evelyn's tea. I called out, "Lucy, Evelyn, where are you?" No one answered. I put the bag with the soup on the counter. At that exact moment, I heard a loud thud coming from the second floor, like a heavy object hitting wood and crashing to the floor. My heart jumped. I thought Evelyn had fallen and sprinted up the stairs. The closer I got to the second floor, the more clearly I heard heavy, chaotic, rapid breathing. Our bedroom door was ajar, a yellowish light spilling through the crack. As soon as I put my hand on the knob, the door was pulled open from the inside. Lucy was right in front of me. Her blouse was wrinkled, the top 2 buttons undone. Her messy hair stuck to her face, which was livid. Her lips trembled, and she was pulling her blouse down with both hands. As soon as she saw me, she stepped back, terrified. "Miss Sarah, why are you home at this hour?" That question in those circumstances felt like a stab wound. This is my house. That is my bedroom. And the person who owed me an explanation was asking why I was there. I didn't answer. I pushed the door and walked in. Tyler was sitting on the floor, leaning against the bed. His face was pale, his forehead covered in sweat, and he was clutching his chest with his left hand. The bed was completely tilted to one side because one of the front legs had snapped off. The sheets were rumpled, the pillows on the floor, and the nightstand was pushed out of place. In that instant, my ears rang. I looked at my husband, at Lucy, and at the broken bed. The scene before me was so sordid that a single scream would have turned it into the neighborhood's juiciest gossip. The maid with her clothes messed up, the husband panting in a closed room, the bed broken. Behind me, Lucy started to sob. "Ma'am, I don't know how to explain." I turned to look at her. Her tears were falling fast, but her eyes weren't those of a person in panic. Her eyes darted rapidly from Tyler to the bed, as if waiting for my reaction. Tyler called out with difficulty, "Sarah, listen to me." I raised my hand to stop him. Not because I didn't want to hear it, but because if I listened in a rush, I might be dragged into the narrative they wanted me to hear. I walked slowly around the bed. The fracture on the bed leg wasn't straight top to bottom, but slanted to the side as if it had been hit by a strong lateral impact. On the hardwood floor near the desk was a loose button, and then I saw the corner of a white piece of paper sticking out of a brown manila folder under the bed. That piece of paper snapped me out of my daze. I knelt down and pulled the folder out. The outside of the folder had a fresh crease, as if it had been snatched from someone's hands and thrown to the floor. Tyler, seeing the folder, got red eyes and trembling lips. Lucy lunged forward immediately. "Don't open that, ma'am. That's not yours." I clutched the folder tightly against my chest and looked her dead in the eye. "It's in my bedroom under my bed. I have the right to know what it is." From downstairs, Evelyn's voice echoed. "What's going on up there?" Lucy started crying louder. "Miss Evelyn, help me!" I was in the middle of my bedroom holding the folder, looking at the broken bed. If I lost my cool, everything would turn into a cheap scene of jealousy. But if I stayed lucid, the folder in my hand might reveal the truth someone was trying to hide. I always thought that if I caught my husband in an ambiguous situation with another woman, I wouldn't be able to stay calm. Women are like that. The deeper the love, the greater the pain. But in that moment, in the middle of my messy room, looking at Lucy fake crying behind me, I felt a strange coldness. Maybe because the scene felt too perfect, like a rehearsed play. Tyler sat on the floor, his breathing loud, his eyes shifting between panic and a plea for help. Lucy tugged at her blouse and cried in short sobs. "Miss Sarah, I'm so scared I don't dare speak." I turned to her. "If you don't dare speak, then shut up. Stay right there." She stopped. Maybe she didn't expect me not to attack her, not to scream. Because if I had, the story would instantly transform into a jealous wife's rampage. People are like that. The second they see a woman lose her mind, they forget to ask why she's suffering. I bent down to look at the bed leg. We've had this solid wood bed for over 6 years. If it had broken just from someone's weight, the crack would be vertical. But the break in front of me was lateral, the screws ripped from the frame. There was a scratch on the hardwood, a spilled glass of water by the nightstand, and the button on the floor wasn't from any shirt Tyler owned. Today he was wearing a crew neck t-shirt. I picked up the button and put it next to the folder. Lucy immediately said it. It must have been when I got scared. My blouse ripped. I looked at her. "I didn't ask you anything." One short sentence and her face grew even paler. I opened the folder. Inside was a stack of papers held by a paperclip. The first page was a photocopy of the property deed. The second was a loan contract for $75,000. At the bottom were Tyler's name and mine. The third was a power of attorney for property management in case the debt wasn't paid on time. The fourth page made my hands go ice cold. A declaration stating that I voluntarily renounced all property rights related to the $50,000. My family had contributed to the home remodeling. At the bottom was a signature Sarah. It looked like my signature about 80%, but it wasn't mine. I sign contracts almost every week, and I know where I apply pressure when I write. This signature looked like mine at first glance, but the final stroke was too heavy, and the S had a different curve than my habit. I kept flipping and saw a photocopy of my old driver's license. There were also some medical test results in Tyler's name with diagnoses that looked severe, but the file numbers and the hospital department didn't match up. Someone unfamiliar with legal documents might get scared, but looking at it, I instantly smelled a setup. Tyler said with a hoarse voice, "Sarah, I didn't sign it. I haven't signed anything yet." I looked at his hand. His right hand had a smudge of blue ink on the thumb. On the floor near his foot was a pen. "Who brought this folder into the room?" Before he could answer, Lucy burst into tears. "Don't pressure Mr. Tyler anymore. I'm the victim here. Look at me. Look at the state I'm in. And you're asking me about papers." I stood up and looked at her closely. The blouse was wrinkled, yes, but not torn. The hair was messy, yes, but her wrists had no scratches. There were plenty of tears, but her breathing was much more regular than Tyler's. I said, "If you're the victim, I'm calling the Chicago Police Department right now. Whatever needs to be said will be said on the record." Lucy shut up immediately. On the stairs, Evelyn's footsteps approached. Quickly, I took out my phone and photographed every page in the folder. I photographed the broken bed leg, the button, the pen, and Tyler sitting on the floor. Lucy lunged to snatch my phone. "You can't take pictures. This is family business," I dodged her. A family business with my forged signature is no longer just a family business. As soon as Evelyn reached the bedroom door, Lucy ran to her crying. "Miss Evelyn, they're treating me so unfairly. I'm so scared." I looked at my mother-in-law then at the folder on the dresser. Whoever planned this knew the house well, knew my husband's weak points, and knew how easily I might lose my temper. They wanted me to make a jealous scene, but I chose to bend down and pick up the evidence. Evelyn stood in the doorway, leaning against the frame, her eyes scanning the scene from Lucy to Tyler, stopping at me. Her face initially showed clear panic, but that panic vanished quickly, like someone pulling a curtain over what's hidden behind. Lucy clung to her arms, sobbing. "Miss Evelyn, I don't know how I'm going to live now. I just came upstairs to get something for you and..." Suddenly, she left the sentence hanging just enough for anyone listening to imagine the worst. A cunning woman's tongue is like that. It doesn't need to say everything to lead others to assume the worst. Evelyn turned sharply to Tyler. "Tyler, what did you do for things to reach this point?" Tyler pressed his hands to the floor, trying to get up, but his legs shook. His lips were turning purple, his forehead dripping sweat. He coughed and said, "Mom, it wasn't like that." Evelyn snapped. "If it wasn't like that, then how come the girls' clothes are like this and you were locked in the bedroom? What a disgrace for this family. How are we going to look our neighbors in the face?" If I only listened up to hear, I might think she was defending a victim. But at that exact moment, her eyes landed on the folder I held and her expression completely changed. It was no longer the pain of a mother seeing her son in trouble, nor an old woman's shock at a crisis. It was fear. Fear and rage. Like someone who sees a deeply buried secret dug up in broad daylight. She stepped forward rapidly. "What do you have in your hand?" I answered slowly. "A folder that was under our bed." She reached out. "Give it to me." I gripped it tighter. "Inside here is my name. A forged signature imitating mine, a loan contract, and a declaration waiving my property rights. I need to know where this came from." Evelyn yelled, "I told you to give it to me. You have no right digging through those things." That sentence was a needle piercing straight into my suspicion. If she knew nothing, she should have asked what papers they were, who brought them, and why there was a fake signature. Instead, her first reaction was to try and snatch them. I stepped back, placed the folder on my dresser, and picked up my phone. I turned on the voice recorder and laid it face down next to a powder compact. "Evelyn, I'm not giving this to anyone. Since I arrived, everything in this room has been weird. I suggest everyone clear things up right here, right now." Lucy started crying even louder. "Miss Sarah, please don't make a scandal out of this. I'm just a maid. I'm so scared." I looked at her. "If you're scared, then tell the truth. Earlier you said you were a victim. If that's true, I'll call the cops to write up a report." Lucy swallowed hard. Evelyn immediately intervened. "It's family business. Why call the police? Do you want the whole neighborhood to know Tyler ruined his reputation?" I turned to her. "I'm not ruining Tyler's reputation. Whoever staged this is." Hearing this, Tyler covered his face with his hands. His shoulders shook. After so many years of marriage, I know he's a terrible actor. If he had actually cheated, his eyes would be darting ashamed. But right now, his eyes held the fear of a cornered animal. I walked over and locked the bedroom door. The click of the deadbolt sounded dry. Evelyn jumped. "What are you doing?" I said I'm locking the door so no one leaves. "Until everything is cleared up, if you think I'm overreacting, I'll call my brother, the neighborhood association president, and the police. With outside witnesses, maybe it'll be better." Evelyn ground her teeth. "Are you threatening me?" "No, I'm protecting myself for the first time." I spoke to my mother-in-law in a voice so calm and cold. For 13 years, I always lowered my head to keep the peace. But there are moments when lowering your head just a little more means putting your neck right under someone else's boot. I turned to Tyler. "Speak. What is this folder? Why is there a forged signature? Why was Lucy in our bedroom? And why did your mom try to snatch it the second she saw it?" Tyler looked at his mother. Evelyn glared at him. "Tyler, you're exhausted. Keep quiet. Don't let them force you to say nonsense." I tapped the phone on the table, the screen showing it was recording. "You can stay quiet. But if you do, I'm calling the authorities right now. And then every word, every piece of paper, this whole setup will be officially recorded. I don't have enough trust left to listen to explanations after dinner." Tyler lowered his head, tears falling on his hands. A man who managed dozens of employees crying in that room like a child caught between his mother and his wife. He said with a hoarse voice, "Sarah, I'm sorry. I didn't cheat on you." Lucy forced me to sign the papers. I refused and we started arguing. The bed broke when I shoved the folder away. It hit the bed leg hard, and then Lucy ripped her own blouse. Lucy immediately screamed, "Mr. Tyler, how can you say that? Are you so afraid of your wife that you blame it all on me?" Tyler shook his head. "You shut up. I've stayed quiet for too long." That sentence silenced the room. Evelyn's face was ashen. Tyler, don't be stupid. Everything I did was for you for this house, I looked at her. With just that one sentence, she herself cracked open the door to the secret. I asked very slowly, "What exactly did you do for this house, Evelyn?" She pressed her lips tightly and didn't answer. And Lucy looked at her with a completely different expression, no longer submissive. That look was as sharp as a newly honed knife. I knew from that moment the play was falling apart. The actors were no longer on the same side. And when accomplices start fearing each other, the truth finds its own way out. Once Tyler finished speaking, the silence in the room was so deep you could hear the spilled water dripping onto the floor. Evelyn sat down abruptly on the edge of a chair, her hands gripping each other. Lucy shrank near the door, her eyes darting from Evelyn to Tyler, calculating whether to keep crying or change her tune. I pulled up a chair and sat down, placing the folder in front of me. "Tell me everything from the beginning, leave nothing out." Tyler swallowed hard, his voice raspy. Over a year ago, Mom heard Uncle Albert talking about a real estate investment down in Florida. He said it was an insider opportunity, that the land would get zoning permits soon, and in a few months the profit would double. Mom, afraid you'd find out and stop her, secretly withdrew her savings. Evelyn reacted instantly. "I just wanted to have some money for my old age. I'm old. I can't keep holding my hand out to my daughter-in-law." I looked at her. "I never let you go without food or medication. But you hid this investment from the whole family, and now a loan contract appears with my name on it. Is this what you call preparing for your old age?" She had no answer. Tyler continued. "At first, Mom only invested her own money. Then Uncle Albert bragged that several people were putting down deposits and that latecomers would lose out. He even said because she was his sister, she had priority. Hearing that, she got greedy and her pride kicked in. She went to people at the senior center, some church friends, and even 2 relatives on Dad's side, telling them she had a sure-thing real estate deal and anyone who wanted to invest could give her the money. The money flowed in easily. But when the Florida land didn't get the permits, people came back for their money just as fast. Uncle Albert started dodging calls. Sometimes he'd answer, sometimes not. Only when the investors started showing up at our house looking for him did Mom panic. Her initial money, the interest she promised, and the loans she took to cover the holes. Altogether, it hit $75. 000. Hearing this, I felt a chill. An elderly woman, out of pride and a desire to prove she wasn't inferior to her daughter-in-law, had dug herself into a $75,000 hole. Worse, it wasn't just a financial debt. She had dragged the whole family's honor down. I asked Aunt Lucy, "When did she enter this?" Tyler looked at Lucy. She hurriedly wiped her tears. "I just felt sorry for Miss Evelyn. She was so sad, I just pointed her to a place where she could get a temporary loan." I laughed bitterly. "A temporary loan that includes a document for me to renounce my property rights." Lucy lowered her face. Tyler said, "About 3 months ago, when the creditors started pressuring her, Lucy told Mom she knew someone who lent money outside the banking system. She could get the cash fast, but for such a high amount, she needed the house deeds, the signatures of everyone involved, and a declaration guaranteeing the family wouldn't contest the assets. The house was in my late dad's name, but the remodel and expansion was funded by your family. Lucy knew this because Mom told her in a moment of anger. So she hatched a plan to force you to sign away your rights, or at least fake the document first, to blackmail you into signing the real one later." Evelyn stammered. "I didn't want to hurt you. I thought the paper was just for the temporary loan, and after paying it off, we'd tear it up." I looked straight at my mother-in-law. "Evelyn, a knife in the hands of a bad person is no longer a knife to peel fruit. You knew the document had my name, and you still let them do it. That means you weighed me on the scale and tossed me." Tyler lowered his head. He confessed that 2 weeks ago he had discovered some text messages between Evelyn and Lucy. When he confronted his mother, she cried, saying that if the story went public and the investors sued her, she was too old to handle it. Lucy, in turn, sent him some edited videos of herself crying outside our bedroom door, insinuating he was a predator. She threatened that if he didn't sign the debt acknowledgement, the video would be sent to the dental equipment company where he worked, to his hospital partners, and even to the clients at my spas. I turned to him. "And you kept quiet." He closed his eyes. "I thought if I bore it alone, I could save the house." Hearing that hurt. Men are strange sometimes. They think hiding things from their wives is protecting them, but in reality, it's leaving them completely alone in the middle of a storm, unaware the roof is about to cave in. I looked at the folder on the desk. The property deed copy, the loan contract, the power of attorney, the forged signature. Every paper was a claw. If I had lost my temper that afternoon, if Tyler had signed out of fear, if Lucy had leaked the video first, I would have been painted as a jealous, greedy woman trying to kick her mother-in-law out onto the street. I asked Tyler what happened this afternoon. He said Lucy conspired with Evelyn to go down to the kitchen to prep tea, then Lucy came up to the bedroom alone to corner him. She handed him the folder, pressuring him to sign the debt acknowledgement, saying if he did, everything would be resolved. He refused and they started arguing. Lucy tried to yank the folder away, he pushed her. The folder flew under the bed, hit the leg hard, and broke it. Immediately after, Lucy unbuttoned her blouse, messed up her hair, and got ready to cry. I turned to Evelyn. Did you know about this plan? Her lips trembled, but she still tried to defend herself. I just wanted to keep the house for Noah. Daughters-in-law are here today, gone tomorrow. But our bloodline needs a place to come home to. That sentence dropped colder than guilt itself. I stood up and gathered the papers. For the first time in my life as a daughter-in-law, I saw clearly that I could no longer yield using the excuse she's getting old, because old people must also be accountable for their actions. The broken bed was still tilted beside me, but what was broken most severely was the last shred of trust I had in my husband and mother-in-law. I placed each document from the folder onto the dresser. The yellow light of the lamp illuminated the printed letters cold as a death certificate for my trust. The $75,000 loan contract. The power of attorney. The deed photocopy. The declaration where I voluntarily waived my rights to the money my family invested in the remodel. Each document had a space for my signature. And the signature was so similar that a stranger would hardly notice the difference. But I did. I picked up the declaration and looked closely at the end. The S in Sarah had a longer tail than my usual. The age at the end was pressed too hard. While I usually sign very fast with the last stroke flying lightly, whoever forged this looked at my signature many times but couldn't capture the flow of my hand. I asked directly, Lucy, where did you get a copy of my signature? Lucy jumped, then lowered her head. I don't know. I'm just a maid. Whatever they hand me, I put away. I laughed bitterly. A maid who knows this folder isn't mine, who knows I shouldn't open it, who knows how to cry on cue and mess up her blouse in the exact right spots. You're wasted as a maid. Lucy's face turned red, but she kept denying it. Tyler spoke up, his voice hoarse with exhaustion. 3 weeks ago, Lucy went with Mom to the River North Spa. That day, Mom said her shoulders hurt, and she wanted a massage. I remember you weren't there, just the staff. I remembered instantly. That day, I was doing an inspection at the Lincoln Park location, and Sophie was managing River North. Evelyn rarely visited my spas, but that day she insisted. I had even been happy thinking my mother-in-law was starting to accept my career. In the end, it was nothing like that. I looked at Lucy. That day you went into the file room, didn't you? Lucy shook her head quickly. No. I stayed out front with Miss Evelyn. I grabbed my phone and called Sophie immediately. My voice was so calm it surprised even me. Sophie, checked the security cameras at River North from the day my mother-in-law came in for a massage. About 3 weeks ago. Look at the file cabinet area. If there's still footage, pull that section for me, please. Sophie, hearing my tone, realized something was wrong. Yes, Sarah. I'm on it right now. Evelyn, sitting nearby, grew anxious. You're at home calling your staff. Are you making a mountain out of a molehill? I replied. A forged signature on a $75,000 loan is not a molehill, Evelyn. She looked away. Tyler continued. Besides the time at River North, Lucy had entered our bedroom several times using the excuse of getting laundry. Once he saw her near the nightstand drawer where I kept my old ID, some bank contracts, and insurance papers. When he asked what she was doing, she claimed she was looking for Evelyn's blood pressure pill box she had left there. Hearing that made my blood boil. Everything fit perfectly. The bedroom key, the file cabinet at the spa, my personal documents, the signatures. No detail was an accident. I turned to my mother-in-law. You told Lucy that my parents paid for the remodel. Evelyn pressed her lips together. I said some things, yes. I was angry and just talking. I didn't think she'd take things this far. Lucy shot her head up instantly. Don't say that, Miss Evelyn. You were the one who said that just because Sarah threw some money at the house, she thought she owned a piece of it. You were the one who said we needed to find a way to make her leave willingly. The room had a grate by hot. Froze. Evelyn glared at her. Shut up, I took pity on you. I gave you a roof and food. Lucy wiped her tears, and for the first time, her voice lost its sweetness. You took pity on me, or you needed me. If it wasn't for me, where would you find someone to forge the papers? Where would you find someone to lend you that kind of money? I looked at the two women in front of me. One was my mother-in-law, the other a maid we barely knew. Yet they had been on the same side planning my downfall. Now, with their interests misaligned, they began attacking each other. Tyler covered his face. Mom, how could you say you wanted Sarah to leave the house? Evelyn turned to her son, eyes red. I just wanted to secure the house for you for Noah. This woman makes a lot of money. One day she might leave you. This house is our legacy. It can't fall into her family's hands. I heard the words, this woman, and felt a chill in my soul. 13 years calling her mom to end up in the moment of truth just being this woman. I spoke deliberately. I never asked for the house. I only asked that my parents' efforts and mine be respected. But you chose to forge documents to force me to give up something I never even fought for. Evelyn turned her face away and didn't answer. Right then, my phone lit up. Sophie had sent a video clip. I played it. Lucy was standing near the file cabinets at the River North Spa. When the receptionist turned to help a client, she opened a drawer, pulled out a stack of commercial leases, quickly photographed them with her phone, and put them back. I showed the screen to everyone in the room. Lucy went pale. I said, do you still want to claim you knew nothing? Lucy bit her lip and stayed silent. That silence wasn't the resignation of the innocent. It was the silence of someone calculating an escape route. I put the phone away, gathered the documents into the folder, and looked at Tyler. Listen carefully. If I had lost my mind this afternoon, attacked you, and left the house tomorrow, the whole family would say I'm an out-of-control, jealous woman not worthy of being a wife. And your mother would have a pretext to force a divorce, keep the house, and paint me as the one who abandoned the family? Tyler hung his head, crying. I felt no satisfaction, only a profound sadness. Because a house that has to be held together with fake papers, fake tears, and trampled honor is no longer a home. It's just a pretty shell on the outside, but inside it's rotting like a termite-eaten beam. I picked up my phone and dialed my brother Hunter. My voice was crystal clear. Hunter, come to my house right now. I have documents with my forged signature, a video of someone photographing my private files, evidence of coercion to sign a debt and defamation. I need my family here as witnesses. After saying that, I looked at Evelyn, Lucy, and Tyler. I knew that from that moment on, no one could use the words family business to shut me up. After the call to my brother, I didn't say much. The room still smelled of sweat, the chicken soup was getting cold downstairs, and there was a faint aroma of floor cleaner. It was a bizarre scene. The broken bed, my husband sitting on the floor, my mother-in-law pale, and the maid shrunk near the door, looking like she was going to cry, but with a gaze sharper than a knife. I locked the folder with the documents inside my dresser drawer, in front of everyone. Evelyn jumped up. What are you doing? Those are papers for my house, I replied. Inside there is my forged signature and a loan contract in our name. From now on, no one touches this without witnesses. She gritted her teeth. Do you really want to humiliate this family to this extent? I looked at her, my heart aching, but my voice steady. No one humiliates their own family as much as the person who brings forged papers into their daughter-in-law's bedroom. Tyler leaned on the floor to stand up, but felt dizzy. I pulled a chair out for him to sit. As angry as I was, I couldn't just let him collapse. The affection of a marriage isn't a switch you can just flip off. But love doesn't mean staying naive. I opened the bedroom door, but stood blocking the exit. No one leaves this house until my brother and the police arrive. Lucy immediately muttered, Miss Sarah, please let me go downstairs. I'm not feeling well. I looked her in the eyes. If you're not feeling well, sit in a chair. The cops will be here soon. If you want to file a complaint that you're a victim, you can explain everything clearly to them. She bit her lip and didn't dare take another step. About 20 minutes later, my brother arrived. He was wearing a work shirt, still dusty. He must have dropped everything to rush over. Seeing the scene in the room, his face hardened, but he didn't yell or ask rushed questions. He just put a hand on my shoulder. Sarah, stay calm. Whatever you have on paper, keep on paper. Whatever you have on video, keep on video. Don't argue. Just with that sentence, I felt my back grow warmer. My family didn't need to be loud, but in the moments I needed them, they were there. I showed him the photos, I took the broken bed, the loan contract, the fake signature, the video of Lucy at the spa. After seeing it all, he turned to Evelyn. Ma'am, this issue can no longer be resolved with words. There's evidence of document forgery and coercion to sign a massive debt. It's best we let the proper authorities document the incident. Evelyn changed her tune. Hunter, you're Sarah's brother. You should advise her. It's a family matter. If it goes public, it's a shame for Tyler and Noah. My brother said calmly, exactly because of Noah is why everything needs to be cleared up. A kid shouldn't grow up in a house where adults use each other's honor as a shield. She was speechless. Shortly after Mr. Henderson, the neighborhood association president, who lived 2 doors down, arrived, followed by Officer Martin from the Chicago Police Department. I didn't drag out the complaints. I presented the facts in order. I came home early, heard a noise. Saw Lucy leaving the room in a strange state, found my husband next to a broken bed and discovered a folder with debt documents and a signature I suspected was forged. Officer Martin, after listening, reminded me, "Ma'am, you should always use the phrase suspicion of, or alleged. The veracity of the facts will be determined later." I nodded. I memorized that phrase. Mr. Henderson looked around the room and sighed. Such a quiet house. How did it come to this? I didn't answer. Some tranquility is just a tablecloth covering hot coals. When Officer Martin asked each person for their version, Lucy changed her role again. At first she cried, saying she was startled by Mr. Tyler. But when the officer asked why the folder with the loan contract was in the bedroom, she hesitated. Evelyn rushed to intervene. "This girl just got here. She must have been influenced by someone. I'm old, I don't understand paperwork." Hearing this, Lucy shot her head up and her face lost every ounce of pity. "How can you say that, Miss Evelyn? You asked me to find a way to get money. You gave me the house deeds, told me Sarah had her family's money invested here, and now you're throwing all the blame on me," Evelyn yelled. "Shut up, I took. Pity on you, I gave you food and shelter, and you're sabotaging me." Lucy laughed mockingly, her voice ice cold. "You needed me. You didn't feel sorry for me. The text messages where you asked me to find a way to humiliate Sarah so she'd leave willingly, I still have them." The room fell dead silent. Tyler covered his face. I looked at my mother-in-law. Her lips trembled, but she couldn't say a word. I turned to Officer Martin. "I'd like you to record that last statement. I wish to submit the messages, the photos, the security camera video, and the documents with suspicion of forgery." The officer nodded and jotted it down in his notepad. Mr. Henderson also confirmed the state of the room and the fact that the parties had conflicting statements. Evelyn started to cry. This time it wasn't a cry of anger, but the cry of someone watching the hole they dug collapse under their own feet. "Sarah, I'm old. I was tricked by her. I was just afraid of losing the house. Afraid that later Noah wouldn't have a place to live." I heard the words "I'm old" and felt a wave of immense fatigue. How many times in my life as a daughter-in-law had that phrase been used to make me yield? But old age cannot be armor to protect mistakes. I said, "You worried about your grandson, but you let him risk seeing his mother wrongfully accused, defamed, and kicked out of her home. That's not a grandmother's love." She lowered her face. The initial police report was filed that same afternoon. I signed it with my own hand, and seeing my familiar handwriting, I felt a lump in my throat. A real signature to protect me from fake ones. When everyone went downstairs, the chicken soup I had bought for Tyler was still on the counter, cold. I looked at it for a moment and threw it in the trash in silence. There are things that once cold can be reheated and eaten, but trust once used as bait doesn't warm up again with a simple apology. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. The house was quiet, but it wasn't the usual peace. It was the silence following a storm when the debris hasn't been cleaned up yet, but everyone knows the roof is damaged. Tyler slept in Noah's room. I say slept, but surely he didn't close his eyes either. And I lay alone in the bedroom with the broken bed temporarily propped up with a stack of old books. I didn't call a carpenter right away. I wanted to leave things as they were for a while, as a reminder to myself that some fractures shouldn't be hastily covered up. Around 7 a.m., my phone started ringing. The first call was from Uncle Jack, the relative on my husband's side who had been a witness to the declaration about my family's money. As soon as I answered, he sighed. "Sarah, honey, your mother-in-law told me there was a huge problem at the house yesterday. That you caught Tyler with the maid made a scene and even called the cops." I closed my eyes for a second. The story had already been twisted faster than I imagined. I said, "Good morning, Uncle Jack. The matter isn't that simple. There were documents with my forged signature and a loan contract in our bedroom. I asked the police to file a report." He was silent for a moment, then lowered his tone. "I'm not taking sides, but family matters are resolved at home. Bringing in outsiders only brings shame to your husband and your son. No one else." That phrase sounded so familiar it gave me a headache. Whenever a woman is hurt, they advise her to save face for the husband and kids. A woman's honor is like a tablecloth. It gets dirty, you wash it quickly, and it's fine. I answered calmly. "Yes, Jack. I wanted to resolve it at home too. But when someone inside the home forges my signature and uses my honor to force me out that door, is no longer strong enough to keep the truth inside." Uncle Jack didn't say much else, just asked me to think it over. As soon as I hung up, a cousin called. She didn't ask if I was okay. Her first words were, "Oh, Sarah, a smart woman knows how to yield. If the husband messes up, you still have your son. If the mother-in-law is difficult, she's still the mother-in-law. If you make a federal case out of this later, no one will be able to look each other in the eye." I looked at my hands. The tips of my fingers still had a smudge of blue ink from signing the police report yesterday. I said I yielded for 13 years. I yielded to keep the peace at the dinner table, to uphold traditions, to protect my husband's family name. But if yielding more means letting them turn me into a debtor, a jealous wife, a house thief, then I can no longer yield. On the other end of the line, total silence. After that, the phone rang intermittently all morning. Some advised, others criticized. Some said that because I was rich, I now despised my husband's family. Some reminded me that because I worked in the service industry, a scandal like this would spread and I'd lose clients. Someone even said point blank, "The maid is poor thing, maybe she's innocent. You're the boss, don't press too hard." I heard that and had a strong urge to laugh that made my eyes burn. In this life, whoever cries first easily wins everyone's pity. Whoever stays calm is instantly suspected of being calculating. Lucy cried. My mother-in-law cried. Therefore, I automatically became the villain. Around noon, I went down to the kitchen to make some mac and cheese for Noah. He sat at the table eating in silence, twirling the noodles on his fork. Normally, Noah tells me stories from school, the friend who plays soccer, well, the classmate the teacher scolded for forgetting a book. Today, he was quiet. I asked, "Are you tired today, buddy?" He shook his head. No. The more a kid says no, the more a mother knows something is up. I didn't push. I took him to a little diner near our house that he likes and ordered him some chili. Normally, he eats fast while chatting. That day, he just stirred the bowl nonstop. I put my hand over his. "Tell Mom." Noah looked up with red eyes. "Mom, Mason from my class asked if you owe someone money. He said his dad saw a video of some people outside your spa saying you were a deadbeat." My heart squeezed. Adults create the problems, and the knife ends up cutting the kids. I tried to keep my voice steady. Mom doesn't owe anyone money. There are people telling lies about me, and I'm handling it with paperwork and the law. Noah lowered his head. Then why did Grandma say you're making a scene to steal her house? That question knocked the wind out of me. I knew Evelyn was mad at me, but I didn't think she'd say such things to her grandson. My son is only 12. He's not old enough to understand deeds, property, and greed, but he is sensitive enough to feel the pain. I asked softly, "When did Grandma tell you that this morning?" "Grandma said that because you have money now, you want to take our family's house. And she said I'm the grandson that later I have to take the side of my dad's family." I looked at the chili in front of me. The steam was gone. Suddenly, I couldn't swallow. Noah continued, his voice very low. "If Grandma says you're an outsider, then am I an insider or an outsider? Mom." I hugged my son tightly right there in the middle of the diner. People at the next tables looked, but I didn't care. The questions of children hurt more than 100 insults from adults. I whispered in his ear, "You are Mom and Dad's son. You aren't on any team. You don't have to choose Dad's family or Mom's. You just need to stand on the side of what is right and be a good person." Noah hugged me tight around the waist, his shoulders shaking. That night at home, I didn't argue with Evelyn. I was afraid if I opened my mouth, I wouldn't be able to stay calm. I took Noah to his room, got him showered, and sat with him to do homework. But inside me, a decision was forming, as clear as a light turning on in the middle of the night. This was no longer about the house, the money, or my honor. It had touched my son. Around 9 p.m., I went up to the office and lit a candle next to my father-in-law's photo. Mr. Richards' portrait sat in its usual place. His face serene, his gaze looking like it saw everything happening in the house. I prayed silently. "Dad, if you loved me in life, please give me the clarity to protect Noah." While dusting the small bookshelf, I saw the antique wooden box in the corner. My father-in-law used it to store old papers. After he died, Evelyn rarely touched it, saying looking at his things made her sad. I opened it. Inside were some photos of the old house, a stack of yellowed hardware store receipts, the copy of the declaration about the $50,000 my family invested, and at the bottom, an envelope with Tyler's name on it. My hands trembled slightly. I took the envelope to the living room. Tyler was sitting alone, looking exhausted. I placed the letter in front of him. "It's from your dad." I found it in the wooden box in the office. Tyler looked at his father's handwriting and clamped his lips shut. He opened the letter very slowly. In it, Mr. Richard wrote that the house hadn't been built just with bricks, cement, and our family's money, but also with my sweat, with my parents' generosity and their life savings. He asked Tyler that even after he died, never to let me be treated like a mere dependent. And he wrote a sentence that made Tyler break down crying. If a man doesn't protect his wife, he can't blame the world for disrespecting her. Tyler held the letter, his shoulders dropping. For the first time I saw him cry, not out of fear of his mother, not out of lying, but out of shame. He said, I failed you. I failed my dad. I failed our son. I sat across from him, my heart aching, but without the same weakness as before. The mistake wasn't being weak once. The mistake was being weak for so long that others used your silence as a pathway. He nodded, tears falling onto the letter. That night, Tyler wrote a statement. He wrote the dates he found out about his mother's debt, the moment Lucy threatened him with the video, the coercion to sign the debt acknowledgement, and the fact that he had the audio recording and hid it from me. He signed it, screenshot the messages Lucy sent him, and forwarded everything to my lawyer, Attorney Arnold. I stood by the window. Looking out at the street, the corner coffee shop had already turned off its lights. You could only hear the sporadic sound of a car passing by. In the room, Tyler kept writing, like someone digging up his own cowardice to bring it to the light. I didn't forgive him. It couldn't happen that fast. A wound hidden under a scab when reopened is still infected. But I acknowledged that for the first time he didn't just say sorry. He actually did something concrete to stand on the side of the truth. Before going to bed, I went to Noah's room. He was already asleep, hugging an old toy car. I tucked his blanket in and promised myself I wouldn't let anyone force him to pick sides in a war created by adults. The house could be lost, the money could be earned back, but a child's soul, if poisoned by hate and greed, doesn't heal easily. And from that night on, I knew I would go all the way not to defeat my mother-in-law Lucy or Uncle Albert. I would go all the way so my son would know his mother didn't steal from anyone, didn't run from anyone, and above all, never bowed her head to what was wrong. The next morning, Tyler received a text from Lucy. She no longer used a tearful tone. The message was short, cold, and direct. If he didn't sign the debt agreement, the video of her walking out of our bedroom with her clothes messy would be sent to his company, to hospital partners, and to the Yelp and Google review pages of my spas. Tyler showed me his phone. His hands shook, but this time he didn't hide it. I looked at him. You know what you have to do. He nodded, took a screenshot, extracted the file, and immediately sent it to my lawyer and my brother Hunter. It was just a small act. But for Tyler, it was the first time he chose not to hoard the trash and call it protecting the family. Less than an hour later, Uncle Albert showed up. He was Evelyn's brother, a man in his early 60s. Short, stocky hair slicked back, wearing a crisp white shirt tucked into his slacks. As soon as he walked in, he sighed like a patriarch coming to settle a dispute. Sarah niece. I heard what happened and I was very sad. Family problems are solved at home. Bringing in cops and lawyers is like exposing our shame in the street. I poured him a glass of water and set it in front of him. Drink some water, Uncle Albert. As for this matter, I'm not exposing anyone. I'm protecting myself. He took a sip and put the glass down. You are a daughter-in-law. You need to think about your husband's family. If your mother-in-law made a mistake, she's still his mother. Older folks get confused. Sometimes they listen to bad influences. If you push this, Tyler looks bad, and when Noah grows up, he'll carry that shame. I looked at him. People like him always use pretty words to cover up ugly things. They open their mouths to talk about morality, but behind it are shady debt contracts and bad investments. I pulled out some printouts of the text messages from my folder. You say bad influences tricked my mother-in-law. So explain these texts to me. Who invited her to invest in a Florida land deal? Who said the zoning permits were coming soon? Who talked about an insider opportunity that she'd lose if she delayed? Uncle Albert's face hardened. I then put down the list of people who invested and the receipts Evelyn signed. These people gave my mother-in-law money because they believed her word. And she believed yours. When the land didn't get the permits, where were you? He coughed. Business has its ups and downs. I didn't scam anyone. The project had legal issues. I took a hit too. It hasn't been easy for me. My brother sitting next to me said calmly, if you took a hit, you must have documents proving the cash flow, the investment contracts, the project status. You can't just say, I took a hit and call it a day. Uncle Albert glared at my brother, annoyed. This is a family matter for us. You're from the wife's side. Don't meddle too much. My brother smirked. When a forged document has my sister's name on it, I stop being an outsider. Evelyn, sitting in the corner, was pale. She didn't dare look at her brother or at me. Tyler was quiet, but this time he didn't look down to avoid conflict. He sat next to me with his phone containing Lucy's threats resting on the table. I said to Uncle Albert, "I'm not accusing you of fraud. The proper authorities will decide that. But from today on, I ask you not to use the word family to advise me to swallow things that appear to be illegal." Uncle Albert turned red. "A daughter-in-law with such a sharp tongue," I replied. "Yes, a cornered daughter-in-law has to learn to speak clearly. If she's always meek, others think she has no spine." The atmosphere was tense when my brother got a call, stepped out to the patio, and returned shortly, whispering, "Sarah, I found someone who's had problems with Lucy before. Her name is Tara. Her mom was in the hospital, and Lucy was her caregiver." That afternoon, I met with Tara at a quiet coffee shop near my River North spa. She was in her early 40s, thin her face, showing signs of fatigue. As soon as she saw Lucy's photo, she confirmed it. That's her. Back then, she called my mom Miss Evelyn, too. She was very attentive. She found out we had a plot of land downstate and introduced us to someone for a loan to fix a deed issue. Luckily, I noticed the power of attorney they wanted me to sign had weird clauses and stopped everything in time. I asked her why she hadn't reported her. Tara sighed. "I didn't have much proof back then. My mom liked her. She always said the girl was a poor soul. My family was afraid of a scandal, so we let it go. But when Hunter told me you went through something similar, I figured I couldn't stay quiet anymore." She told me Lucy had a habit of probing families very skillfully. If the elderly felt lonely, she listened to them. If there were inheritance disputes, she memorized the details. Who was weak, who was proud, who feared public shame. She saw it all and then introduced the topic of loans, powers of attorney, investments, each time differently. But the core was always the same, exploiting greed and fear within families. Hearing that sent a chill down my spine. Turns out Lucy wasn't a simple maid who strayed because of poverty. She was an expert at finding houses with cracks, and then pouring dirty water in to turn the crack into a rupture. That night at home, I added Tara's testimony to my evidence folder, noting the date, phone number, and conversation details. Attorney Arnold said Tara could be a key witness. I looked at the folder growing thicker by the day. Every page was a piece of the truth, silent but heavy. Evelyn, seeing me organize the papers, approached, her voice raspy. "Sarah, do you really have to take this all the way?" I looked up. "I'm not taking it all the way. I'm just not backing up anymore." She fell silent. For the first time, there wasn't just anger in my mother-in-law's eyes. There was fear. Not fear that I was being disrespectful, but fear that everything she tried to hide would finally be dragged into the light. I knew the time had come for a clear confrontation, not to shame anyone, but so everyone who used saving face to silence me would have to look at the truth with their own eyes. The confrontation took place on a Sunday morning in the living room of our Oak Park house. I didn't want to turn my house into a courtroom, but if I let the story keep being told by each person's spin, the truth would be forever distorted. I invited my lawyer, Attorney Arnold, my brother Hunter, the Neighborhood Association President Mr. Henderson, and Officer Martin from the CPD to record the incident. From my husband's side of the family were Uncle Jack and the two cousins who had called to advise me to yield. I also asked Uncle Albert to be there. Evelyn sat in the middle armchair, her white hair falling over her temples, her face sunken. Lucy sat on the edge of the sofa, hands clutching her canvas bag. Uncle Albert still wore his white shirt, but the patriarchal air from the other day was mostly gone. I placed the evidence folder on the coffee table. "I invited you all not to humiliate anyone. I just want to make sure that from today on, no one calls me a jealous wife, a usurper, or says I disgrace the family." Attorney Arnold started with the clearest facts. The photo of the folder under the bed, the $75,000 loan contract, the power of attorney, and the waiver declaration with my allegedly forged signature. Then the copy of my old ID, the medical results in Tyler's name with mismatched file numbers. Uncle Jack picked up one of the printouts, his face heavy. "This signature looks exactly like hers." I answered, "Yes, Uncle." Because it looks like it, I had to ask for an expert analysis. If I just argued with words, who would believe me? Next, the River North security video was shown. In it, Lucy was seen opening the file cabinet and photographing a commercial lease with my signature. Lucy lowered her head. Evelyn covered her eyes with her hand. The lawyer then presented our home recordings. The ground floor and front door cameras working perfectly. The second floor hallway camera turned off for exactly 34 minutes. Then Lucy's threatening text to Tyler, and finally the audio recording of Evelyn and Lucy plotting to create a scene to leave me not knowing what to do. The air in the room grew thick. One of the cousins who had criticized me muttered, "Oh my God," so it was all planned. Evelyn burst into tears. "I messed up. I'm old. I was tricked by her. I was just terrified of losing the house, afraid my daughter-in-law would leave Tyler one day. Lucy threw her head up suddenly. Don't put all the blame on me. Who told me the story about her family's money? Who said she didn't like Sarah because she made her own money? Who said if she just left the house it would be easier to force a divorce? Trembling, Evelyn pointed a finger at her. You are a con artist. I took pity on you. I gave you food and a home. Lucy laughed coldly. You needed me to do your dirty work. You didn't feel sorry for me at all. That sentence was like a slap across the room. Evelyn opened her mouth, but couldn't speak. I pulled out the bank statements of the $50,000 my parents wired for the renovations, the declaration signed by my father-in-law, the hardware store receipts, and the letter Mr. Richard left for Tyler. When Uncle Jack saw his own signature on the document he witnessed years ago, he lowered his head for a long time. I'm sorry, Sarah. I signed that paper, and yet, a few days ago, I had the nerve to tell you to just let it go. I didn't criticize him, I just said, I don't need anyone to defend me out of affection. I just need you to look at the facts. Then it was Uncle Albert's turn. My brother placed the text messages, inviting Evelyn into the Florida land deal in front of him. The list of people who handed over cash, the receipts signed by Evelyn, and the call logs showing he avoided them after the project failed. Uncle Albert tried to defend himself. It was a deal that went bad. I didn't scam anyone. Attorney Arnold said calmly, the authorities will determine that. Today we are only establishing the connection between this investment and the pressure that led to the creation of a fraudulent debt contract. At the door, some of the investors, having heard about the meeting, showed up to confront Uncle Albert. He could no longer keep up his good guy facade. His face went pale, sweat dripping down his forehead. The meeting ended with a supplemental police report. I formally filed charges attaching all the evidence. As instructed, the facts involving suspicion of document forgery, misuse of personal data, coercion, defamation, and extortion were forwarded for investigation. As for the property dispute, Attorney Arnold also prepared a lawsuit to protect my family's legal contribution and our own. A few months later, the consequences started falling into their rightful places. Evelyn had to sell a small piece of land she owned back in her hometown to pay off part of the debt to the people she borrowed from. She no longer dared call me an outsider. But a wall was built between us, not a loud one, but a very high one. Lucy was investigated for her involvement in using edited videos for blackmail, document forgery, and brokering shady loans. Tara also agreed to testify about her previous case. Uncle Albert was called in multiple times to testify about the Florida land deal. The righteous businessman coat he always wore couldn't hide the dirt in his pockets. Tyler took time off. He started going to therapy for an anxiety disorder and to learn how to stand up to his mother instead of using silence to hide. He asked me for a second chance. I told him, you didn't cheat on me physically, but you cheated on me with your silence. That wound doesn't heal with a simple apology. I moved into a small apartment in River North with Noah. Tyler came with us, but not as a forgiven husband. He had to start over from zero, like a man who needs to prove he knows how to protect his wife and his son. I still let Noah visit his grandmother, but I set clear boundaries. Evelyn cannot speak ill of his mother in front of him, nor use the words family blood to force a child to pick a side. The old house is waiting for the legal property situation to be cleared up. I don't want anyone else's share, but I also won't let anyone swallow my parents' hard work. Looking back at that bed with the broken leg, I realize it didn't make my life collapse. It only shattered the facade of falseness in that house, so I could clearly see the greed, weakness, and scheming hidden under the name of family. A woman can yield to keep the peace, but she must never yield to the point of losing her honor. A home isn't the place that has your name on the deed, but the place where people respect and protect each other.